She stared at me like I'd broken something. Maybe I had. Maybe it was her illusion. Maybe it was the mirror she used to admire herself in while I sat in the background, invisible, loyal. I didn't say it again. She didn't move. Just stood barefoot on the hallway tile, arms crossed like she was cold, or pretending to be. She always pretended. Good at it too. When you've been lying for months, maybe longer, what's one more night of pretending? I didn't flinch. Didn't pause. I picked up the bag I'd packed, duffel, half-zipped, clothes shoved inside without folding, toothbrush jammed in next to a bottle of whiskey I hadn't touched since Christmas. I opened the front door. She said, "You're being dramatic." I stopped. Just for a second. Because the way she said it, calm, bored, almost amused. Like I was the idiot in all this. Like I just spilled coffee on her rug and now she had to act like it mattered. I turned halfway, looked at her. Not all the way. Not enough to invite a conversation. Just enough to let her know I heard her. That I wanted her to know I chose to ignore it. She laughed. Quiet. Dry. Okay, she said, run away then. Go ahead. That's all you're good at. That made me stop. Not the words. The way she weaponized them. Like she'd been holding them for this exact moment. Like this wasn't panic for her, it was choreography. She didn't follow me outside. Didn't ask me to stay. No tears, no apologies, no, we can fix this. Because Jessica had already moved on. She just hadn't told me. But her phone did. 2 days ago, I was working from home, VPN up, headset on, Slack buzzing like a hive when her laptop pinged. She left it open, said she was heading out to get something for dinner. She never said what. Just grabbed her keys and left like a storm blowing through a quiet house. A message popped up. Not email. Not Slack. It was some weird app one didn't recognize. Black icon, red flame. The preview said, miss you already. Can still taste you. I'm not the jealous type. I've never been the snooping husband. I've always believed if you go looking for something, you'll find it even if it's nothing. But this wasn't nothing. I clicked it. The app opened straight into a thread. No password. She trusted me that much. Or maybe she never imagined I'd look. His name was Tyler. Profile picture was a dog. Of course. Classic move. Messages scrolled like a punch to the chest. Tyler, last night was insane. You're addictive. Jessica, you bring out the worst in me. Or the best. Depends who's asking, winking face. Tyler, he still doesn't know? Jessica, please. He's too busy being boring. He wouldn't notice if I brought you home for dinner. There were photos. Not those kinds of photos. But enough. Her in his hoodie. Her holding a wine glass in a hotel room that wasn't ours. Her biting her lip like she used to for me. When we were still real. I sat there for 10 full minutes. Staring. Breathing. Not breathing. I don't even remember. Then I did something stupid. I scrolled all the way up. To the beginning. 5 months ago. It started like a joke. You look familiar. Do I? Maybe in my dreams. Then it wasn't a joke anymore. He started calling her Jay. Said it was sexy. Said it made him feel like she was his secret. She liked that. She liked being someone's secret. I didn't confront her that night. I printed the conversation. Every single message. Taped them together. Folded them carefully. Put them on her side of the bed. And waited. The next morning she didn't mention them. Just stepped over the paper like it was a pile of laundry. Brushed her teeth. Played music on her phone. Got dressed in front of me without a hint of guilt. I stood in the doorway and watched her slide her earrings in one by one. Finally, I said, you have anything to say? She blinked once. Looked at the papers. Then at me. Then said, don't act surprised. That was all. That was all she said. Like this was my fault. Like I'd been too boring, too consistent, too dependable. Like I drove her into someone else's arms by not being unpredictable enough. So I packed. Quietly. Took my time. Didn't shout. Didn't beg. And now I'm here. On the porch. 1 foot off the step. Her still inside. Not even trying to stop me. She said, come back inside. I said, I'm not yours anymore. And I meant it. The air outside hit different. Heavier. Like it knew what I just walked away from. Like the world had been waiting for me to finally grow a backbone. I stood on the porch longer than I should have. Not because I was hesitating, but because I needed to feel the weight of it. Every lie. Every skipped heartbeat. Every time I held her while she was dreaming about someone else. I wanted it to sink into my skin so I'd never forget how it felt to be disposable. Behind me, the door didn't close. She didn't come after me. I don't even think she was watching. I got in the car. Didn't start it. The house was dark except for the warm spill of light from the living room window. That same window I used to decorate with Christmas lights. That same spot where she once danced barefoot while holding a glass of wine, swaying to an old Fleetwood Mac song like the world was perfect. That night feels like it belonged to someone else now. I don't know how long I sat there, gripping the wheel. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was loud. Loud enough that I could hear every memory trying to rewrite itself. Every excuse I used to give her. Every red flag I turned into a white one. Then my phone buzzed. A message from her. Jessica, you don't have to make this a thing. Let's be adults. Let's be adults. Like it was a parking ticket or a disagreement over takeout. Like sleeping with another man for months was something I could just file under miscommunication. I didn't respond. 2 minutes later, another buzz. Jessica, you're seriously leaving over this? I didn't love him. You think that matters? That made me laugh. A dry, ugly sound I didn't recognize. I shook my head, turned off the screen, tossed the phone onto the passenger seat. This wasn't about love. This was about respect. About her looking me in the eye for months and choosing to lie every time. About how she let me make coffee for her in the mornings while she texted him under the table. About how she walked back into our bed, carrying someone else's fingerprints on her skin. It wasn't about whether she loved him. It was about how little she respected me. I started the engine. Didn't know where I was going yet. Just that it couldn't be here. Not anymore. I backed out of the driveway slow, almost daring her to step outside. She didn't. Just as I turned onto the street, the porch light clicked off. She really wasn't going to chase me. Not even a whisper of regret. Not even a second glance. I drove without music. Without a destination. Just me and the hum of the tires and the thud of my heartbeat trying to pretend it wasn't broken. You always think you'll know what to do in that moment. That if it ever happened to you, you'd explode, yell, throw something, confront the guy, make a scene. But when it actually happens, you just go numb. Like your whole body folds inward and tucks the pain somewhere deep so it doesn't drown you all at once. I ended up at a 24-hour diner on the edge of town. It wasn't even intentional. I just saw the neon flicker in the corner of my eye and pulled in. I hadn't eaten all day. Still wasn't hungry. But I needed somewhere to sit that wasn't soaked in the memory of her. The waitress, Shelley, according to the tag, asked if I wanted coffee. I said, yeah, and make it ugly. She didn't ask what I meant. Just smiled like she'd heard worse at 3 a.m. and brought the pot over herself. Poured me a cup. Left the pot. I sat there, staring out the window, sipping bitterness and watching the steam curl up into the glass. I thought maybe I'd cry, but I didn't. Maybe that would have made it real. Instead, I sat in the quiet hum of fluorescent lights and booths that smelled like syrup and heartbreak. Then my phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look, but I did. It wasn't Jessica. It was her sister, Claire. Claire, I'm sorry. Just that. 2 words. That's when I knew she knew. Maybe she'd known all along. I typed back, fingers stiff. How long? No reply for a minute. Then, Claire, started in January. I told her to stop. January. It was May now. 5 months. 5 months of her body in our bed, but her heart in someone else's hands. 5 months of me asking her what was wrong, and her saying nothing. 5 months of me looking stupid every time I kissed her goodbye in the morning. Me. Did she tell you who he is? Claire. I met him. Once. That made my stomach twist. Me. What was he like? Claire. Young. Cocky. He knew she was married. Didn't care. Of course he didn't. Guys like that never do. They live for the thrill. They don't care who they're stepping on, as long as the rush keeps coming. Me. Did she ever say why? Claire. She said you were too stable. Too dependable. She missed feeling chaotic. I put the phone face down on the table and took a long, slow breath. Too stable. That's what I was being punished for. For being the guy who showed up. Who stayed. Who paid the mortgage and remembered anniversaries and rubbed her feet when she said work was killing her. Too stable. As if loyalty was boring. Shelley came back and asked if I wanted a refill. I nodded. She looked at me. Not pitiful, not curious. Just kind. Like she saw this kind of wreckage more than she cared to admit. "You okay, Han?" she asked. I almost said yes, but I didn't. I said, "Not even close," and she just nodded. "Coffee's on me tonight." It wasn't much, but it was more than Jessica had offered me in 5 months. I stayed at that diner until the sky started bleeding pale blue over the horizon. It was strange how something as beautiful as dawn could feel so out of place when your whole world was falling apart. Like the universe didn't get the memo that I'd just been gutted. I didn't want to go to a hotel. Too impersonal. Too sterile. I didn't want to go to a friend's house either. Didn't want the looks, the awkward questions, the "you're better off" speeches. Not yet. I wasn't ready to hear how lucky I was to be free from someone who treated me like a placeholder. So I called my brother, Kevin. He answered on the second ring. "Mark, I need somewhere to crash." There was a pause. Then, "You bring coffee?" I managed a half laugh. "No, but I've got a suitcase full of pain." Even better. Doors open. Kevin's apartment was across town. He's single, messy, and allergic to emotional responsibility. But he's blood, and blood shows up when it matters. When I walked in, he was already clearing a spot on the couch, pushing pizza boxes aside. He didn't ask for details. Just handed me a blanket and turned on the TV. Background noise. That was his way of saying, "You're safe here." Hours passed. Then, around noon, she called. I stared at the screen like it was poisoned. Watched her name flash across it, Jessica, wife, and felt this surge of something I couldn't name. Not anger. Not sadness. Just emptiness, like she was calling from another planet. I didn't answer. She called again 5 minutes later. Then again. On the 4th ring, I picked up. "Mark," she said, like my name had weight now. I didn't speak. "I don't know what you're doing, but this isn't the way to handle it." I exhaled through my nose, slow and deliberate. "Is that really what you want to lead with?" Silence. Then, "Look, I didn't plan for it to happen like this." "You didn't plan to cheat?" "No. I mean, yes. I mean, I didn't plan for it to matter." I stood up. Started pacing. "You didn't plan for it to matter, but you kept doing it. You introduced him to your sister. You brought him into our world, Jess." "I didn't bring him anywhere. You don't understand how lonely I've been." My jaw locked. "You don't get to use lonely as an excuse when I was 2 rooms away waiting for you to notice me." She went quiet again. Then, softly, he made me feel like I was wanted. I stopped pacing. "Wanted? You were loved. You had someone who chose you every day, and you traded that for someone who texts you at midnight and disappears by morning. You think I don't know I screwed up?" "No, Jess. I don't think you care. If you did, you'd be here. You'd be begging. You'd be trying. Instead, you're justifying." Another pause. Then she said something I'll never forget. "If you were really everything I needed, I wouldn't have looked somewhere else." There it was. The knife. Twisted. Clean. I didn't scream. Didn't curse. I just said thank you. For what? For confirming exactly who you are. Then I hung up, blocked her number, and sat on my brother's couch in complete, eerie stillness. Because that was the moment I realized she was never mine. She was just borrowing my love until something shinier came along. I didn't move for a while. The silence after the call was something else. Not peaceful, more like the aftermath of a building collapse. You're alive, but buried in it. Can't tell where your heart ends and the wreckage begins. Kevin came back from the kitchen with 2 beers. It was barely afternoon, but he didn't ask. Just handed me one and sat across from me, watching the muted TV like it had answers. After a long sip, he finally said, "She actually said that?" Out loud. I nodded. "Damn," he muttered, shaking his head. "She's cold." I didn't respond. Because it wasn't just cold, it was deliberate. Calculated. She wanted to make it hurt. Or worse, she didn't even care that it would. You don't say something like that unless you've completely let go of the person you're saying it to. And maybe that's what stunned me more than the cheating. She detached. Quietly, efficiently. Like I was just another chapter she'd finished reading. Later that evening, Claire messaged me again. "Claire, she's spiraling. Says she doesn't regret it but also doesn't know why you're so upset." I stared at the screen for a while. Me, because I was faithful. Because I loved her. Because I built my whole life around her and she treated it like background noise. "Claire, she keeps saying you didn't give her attention." Me, I gave her stability. Time. Energy. Commitment. If she wanted attention, she could have said something. She chose betrayal instead. "Claire, I told her that." She rolled her eyes. That broke something in me. Rolled her eyes. Like I was being unreasonable. Like my heartbreak was inconvenient to her. Like I was the problem for reacting to being betrayed like a human being instead of a doormat. Kevin was right. She wasn't just careless. She was cruel. And then, just after midnight, the final nail came. An email. From a name I didn't recognize, Tyler Maddox. I opened it with my stomach already twisted into knots. Subject, you deserve to know. The message was short. 2 lines. I didn't know she was married at first. When I found out, she said you were separated. I wouldn't have touched her if I knew the truth. Sorry, man. There was a screenshot attached. A message from Jessica to him. It read, he's more like a roommate now. We don't sleep together. I'm only staying until I figure out what's next. I blinked at the screen, heart racing, and the rage hit, not explosive, not loud. But slow, controlled, surgical. The kind of fury that makes you dangerous. She didn't just lie to me. She lied about me. To make herself feel justified. To make him feel okay. To keep the lie spinning while I was still buying groceries, still folding her laundry, still planning a vacation we'll never take. I forwarded the email to myself. Then to Claire. No comment. She replied almost instantly, she's a monster. I'm so sorry. I didn't need her apology. I didn't need anyone's. What I needed, what I finally had, was clarity. Jessica wasn't confused. She wasn't lost. She wasn't broken. She was just selfish. Entitled. Rotten in the kind of way that blooms under charm and perfume and pretty dresses. The kind of person who mistakes kindness for weakness and loyalty for boredom. And I had loved her with every atom I had. But not anymore. The next morning, I woke up on Kevin's couch, my neck bent at some god-awful angle and my heart still sitting somewhere between my chest and the trash. The light coming in through the blinds felt sharp. Accusatory. Like even the sun was disappointed in me for letting it go on this long. I had one unread message on my phone. Not from Jessica. From his number. Tyler. I hesitated, then opened it. Look, man. I don't want drama. But she messaged me again last night. Said you were blowing things out of proportion. That you'd calm down. That I shouldn't worry. You okay? You okay? The audacity. The casualness of it. I should have been furious. But all I felt was this strange, hollow calm. Like my anger had finally evaporated and all that was left was this heavy, clinical understanding of what I was actually dealing with. Jessica hadn't stopped. Not even now. Even after being exposed, after the call, after the email, she was still feeding him a different reality. Still trying to write a version of the story where she was misunderstood and I was just the guy who couldn't handle her freedom. I didn't reply. What could I even say to him? We weren't enemies. He was a pawn. And me? I was the idiot who kept the board warm. Later that afternoon, Kevin and I took a drive. He said it'd help. Fresh air, distraction. I didn't argue. Halfway through, we stopped at this lake we used to go to as kids. Empty this time of year. Just wind in the trees and water that didn't care what you were going through. I sat on a bench, phone in hand, and did something I hadn't let myself do until then. I went through our old photos. Vacations. Holidays. Her laughing in the car on a road trip. Us at a wedding. Her curled up in my hoodie, barefoot on our back deck with a glass of wine. And it hit me like a sucker punch to the chest. All that time, I was falling deeper into something that was never solid. She knew. She knew she didn't feel the same, but she let me keep building a future around her anyway. That's the part people don't talk about, the quiet cruelty of knowing you're going to hurt someone and doing it anyway just because you're not ready to lose the benefits. She could have ended it clean. She could have told the truth. Instead, she robbed me of the choice. She wrote a script, handed me a role, and kept directing the scene while she had someone else in the wings. And when the curtain finally fell, she had the nerve to say I was the one making it dramatic. Kevin came back with 2 sodas. Handed me one without a word. We sat there like kids again. Just older now. Broken in places we didn't know could break. You gonna go back? He asked eventually. I didn't look at him. Just watched the wind ripple across the water. No, I said. I'm gonna burn the bridge. And then salt the ground. Because there's no rebuilding when someone poisons your foundation. There's only walking away and making damn sure they can't follow. 2 days passed. 2 full days of silence from Jessica. No texts. No calls. No guilt-laced apologies or desperate pleas. She wasn't processing, she was repositioning. Rewriting the story in her mind, preparing to be the victim in the version she'd tell her friends. I could almost hear her voice already. He overreacted. It wasn't even serious. He was always distant. It didn't matter what I had done. It only mattered how well she could spin it. I knew her game now. But I was done playing. I started making moves, real ones. Called a lawyer. Told him everything, down to the screenshots, the emails, the timelines. I wanted it documented. I wanted every lie she told to be buried under the weight of cold facts. When I told him her name, he paused. Jessica Brooks? I blinked. Yeah, why? He didn't answer at first. Then, I've heard her name before. Came up in another case. Not the same situation, but let's just say she's not unfamiliar to the concept of manipulation. That hit different. Suddenly, the patterns made sense. The emotional push-pull. The gaslighting. The cold shoulder when I got too close to the truth. Jessica wasn't confused, she was experienced. Practiced. That night, I sent her a single text. You'll be hearing from my lawyer. Don't contact me again. It was the only message I'd sent since I walked out. 10 minutes later, she replied. Jessica, seriously? You're making this legal? As if she hadn't made it betrayal. Jessica, Mark, you're blowing this out of proportion. We can fix this. We always fix things. There it was. The reach. The hook. She thought she still had me on a line. That if she dangled enough memories in front of me, I'd come crawling back. But I didn't respond. The next message came 20 minutes later. Jessica, fine. If you want to destroy this, go ahead. I'll be telling people what really happened. I'm not the villain here. And that's when it hit me, she never thought she did anything wrong. Not once. Not when she started texting him. Not when she met him in that hotel. Not when she deleted messages or told him we were just roommates. Not when she looked me in the eye every night and said, I love you. She believed her own excuses. She believed that being unsatisfied gave her permission to lie. I powered off my phone. I sat on Kevin's floor, surrounded by silence, and I wrote everything down. Every moment. Every twist. Every red flag I ignored. Not to hold onto it, but to purge it. Because if I was going to rebuild myself, I had to tear down the version of me that loved her. The version that waited up for her. That believed her late-night excuses. That made excuses for her mood swings. That tried harder every time she pulled away. That man? He deserved better. And the man I was becoming, he wasn't going to be fooled again. The next morning, I woke up to find an envelope slid under Kevin's door. No knock. No text. Just a thick white envelope with my name scrawled in her handwriting across the front. Jessica. I stared at it like it might explode. Picked it up carefully like it was some artifact from a past I was finally starting to bury. Kevin wasn't home, he'd left early for work, so it was just me, four walls, and whatever she thought this was going to do. I sat down. Ripped it open. Inside were 6 handwritten pages, front and back. And a photo. A photo of us. 3 years ago. At the Grand Canyon. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was squinting at the sun, grinning, arm around her. She had her head against my chest, half laughing, hair blowing in the wind. She'd asked a stranger to take it. I hadn't seen that photo in years. She must have kept it hidden. Somewhere private. Somewhere I didn't matter enough to be seen, but I mattered enough to be remembered. The letter started like a confession. I didn't know how to say any of this, and I know you won't answer me, so this is the only way left. I didn't fall out of love with you overnight. It was slow. Like boiling water. I stopped recognizing myself, and I blamed you for it. That's not fair. But it's the truth. Tyler wasn't about love. He was about escaping. He made me feel new. You made me feel safe. And somewhere in the mess, I convinced myself that safety was suffocation. She wrote about the first time she cheated. How she almost turned back. How she told herself it didn't count because it wasn't emotional. Then it did become emotional. And she let it. Let it grow. Fed it while lying to my face every night. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know it wasn't because you weren't enough. It was because I didn't think I deserved someone like you. That line, it felt designed to confuse me. To soften me. But all it did was prove how backwards she saw the world. Because if she truly believed I was too good for her, she would have left me the moment she felt herself drifting. Instead, she used me. I hated how steady you were. How calm. How you never lost control. I wanted chaos again. I thought that would make me feel alive. I laughed. Out loud. Because I finally understood something. She needed someone to blame for her own emptiness. And I was the perfect target. The calm. The loyal. The constant. She wanted to ruin something beautiful because she didn't know what to do with it. I wish I could take it back. She signed it Love, Jess. No apology. No ownership. Just 6 pages of poetic self-justification wrapped in emotional bait. And that photo like a trophy. Like she still wanted to believe we were something real even after she'd set fire to it. I folded the letter. Put it back in the envelope. And I burned it. Lit the edge with a match from Kevin's kitchen drawer and watched it curl into black ash in the sink. Watched every word she wrote dissolve into smoke and silence. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there, breathing in what was left of her and letting it go. This wasn't forgiveness. This was the funeral. Not for her, but for the version of me that still needed answers. The night after I burned the letter, I went back to the house. Not to see her. Not to talk. Just to collect the last few things she hadn't touched, things that weren't hers to keep. My grandfather's watch. My old journals. The toolbox she never once asked me how to use but always expected me to carry. I pulled into the driveway just before 10 p.m. The porch light was on again. Her shadow moved behind the curtain. She'd been watching. Of course she had. I didn't knock. I had a key. It was still my name on the lease. Still my blood in those walls. But I unlocked that door like I was entering a stranger's house. She was sitting on the couch, legs crossed, a glass of wine in one hand, phone in the other. She looked up when I stepped in. Didn't speak. Neither did I. I went straight to the hallway closet, grabbed the box I'd left there weeks ago just in case I ever had to make a quick exit. She spoke as I passed the living room again. Her voice was soft. Calculated. You're not even going to say hi? I didn't stop moving. She sighed. So this is it, huh? No conversation. No goodbye. Just, what, silence? I stopped at the stairs. Turned slowly. You burned goodbye the night you lied to me. Her mouth twitched. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was resentment that I didn't crumble. I wrote you a letter, she said. I lit it on fire. That stung her. I could see it. But she recovered fast. You act like you're some kind of victim, Mark, but you don't even see yourself. You're cold. You shut down. You retreat. I stepped closer. Just enough to look her dead in the eyes. I was quiet, Jess. There's a difference. You don't get to say I was distant when I was the only one who stayed. Her jaw clenched. But she didn't argue. You just want to feel like the good guy, she said finally. But nobody's innocent. Maybe not, I said. But I didn't lie. I didn't cheat. I didn't make someone feel like home and then throw them out into the cold. Silence. And for the first time I saw it, the cracks in her armor. The way her hand tightened around the glass. The way her mouth trembled at the edges. She wasn't in control anymore. She knew it. I grabbed the last of my things. Turned toward the door. Behind me, she said, you'll miss me. I paused, one hand on the handle. Then looked over my shoulder and said, I already do. But not in the way you think. And then I left. No drama. No fireworks. Just the final, quiet step of a man walking away from a storm that no longer scared him. Because I finally understood. Missing someone doesn't mean you want them back. Sometimes it means you're just mourning the illusion. Weeks passed. The quiet was different now, less hollow, more honest. There were no late-night texts. No arguments humming under the surface. No performance. Just silence that didn't ask anything of me. I moved into a small apartment above a bookstore downtown. Nothing fancy. But the light in the mornings was clean and the walls didn't echo with betrayal. I slept like I hadn't in years. Dreamless. Undisturbed. Jessica didn't reach out again. Claire texted once. Just to check on me. Said Jess was seeing someone new already. I didn't ask who. Didn't care. Whoever he was, I knew what he'd eventually find beneath the charm, the games, the spark was a woman who fed on devotion and resented the ones who gave it. I'd learned my lesson. One night, I sat on the floor with a box of things I hadn't opened since before the fallout. Inside were old cards, ticket stubs, photos. Memories that once meant warmth, now just remnants of a life built on borrowed time. I pulled out a card she wrote on our 3rd anniversary. You're the calm to my chaos. I don't know how I got so lucky. I smiled. Not bitterly. Just knowing. She didn't get lucky. She got safe. And when safe stopped being exciting, she reached for chaos again. The difference this time? I wasn't going to be the one holding the net. I threw the whole box out. Not as an act of revenge. But because I didn't want to build my new life on the ashes of a lie. Somewhere in all this, I stopped waiting for closure. Stopped replaying the what-ifs. Stopped needing to understand how someone could smile at you while erasing you. I got my answer. You don't try to decode poison. You don't argue with the fire after it's burned your house down. You rebuild. Stronger. Smarter. Sharper. And you learn to recognize the sound of a spark before it lights the match. If anyone reading this is where I was, second-guessing your gut, shrinking yourself to be easier to love, making excuses for someone who's slowly draining the best parts of you, hear me, leave. Don't wait for it to get better. Don't wait for proof. Don't wait for them to admit it. Because someone who loves you doesn't make you question whether you're enough. They remind you, every day, with honesty, with effort, with presence. Jessica didn't break me. She revealed me, and I'm better for it.